I deliver pizza, and I'd been having a really busy night, non-stop back and forth without any time to even pause and take a leak. I'd been so busy that I wasn't really thinking about bathroom breaks. But we're also going through a bit of a heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving through this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me, like things went from 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so I could just get this one over with quickly. Or so I thought. I pulled up to the house, and it was an area I delivered in before, so I could immediately see that something wasn't right. All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the street light closest to the door happened to be out of order. And on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and obviously there aren't many student renters in July. But there had to be at least one person because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just like sitting in the dark, or they were out back in the yard, or whatever. I just didn't want to get out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night, around 9:30 p.m., without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown, and my car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas didn't help things much. So I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah?" I just try to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." And the customer replied, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that point that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with a customer right out of the gate. "Well then, we're going to have to terminate the order because I've arrived in the stated delivery window and you were supposed to pay in cash, so I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me, as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl who could have been older than 20 or 25. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street so I could barely hear you," she cried. "I just switched you out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming, and that's why I'm literally running home right now. Please don't leave. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Please, seriously, please don't leave. 5 minutes tops, okay?" I know what it's like to be hungry and running late and have no car, but not live near any restaurants. Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this place a couple of times before, and she'd always been perfectly nice. Now, I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back, while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad. I'm letting the heat get to me, and that's not your fault. No need to rush. See you when you get here." I hung up, and while surveilling the street, was starting to think that I was really out of luck. All the other houses had people in them and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out-of-the-way patches of land or anything. Of course, I had just tossed my empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to a point of emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home, The streetlight was out, so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside, and my car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms. So if someone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals pee outside all the time. Humans are animals, so this is fine. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't really have much of a yard, more just a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. And the biggest cluster of bushes, the only one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her door. I looked both ways, unzipped, and let it fly. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off, more like pissing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking I'd aimed wrong, but once I start, I can't stop midstream, so I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key rock or something and could just move a few inches over. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning noise, a deep voice exclaiming, "What the fuck?" And before I could turn around, assuming I'd been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew by me, brushing my golden shower off of him as he did. He spit pretty empathetically on the ground, so I think I might have beamed him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but the next part is kind of a blur. I do think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I'd gotten some night vision by that point, so I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such shock that I didn't even put my dick away. I just stood there trying to figure out what happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it, and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area and just look like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an open window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, "Bruh, the man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation." But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in bushes and all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping by not coping. My fight or flight response totally failed me at that point because my dumb ass did the absolute last thing I should have done. I approached the bushes to try and validate this. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night, theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone flashlight, and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip: as scary as things may look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of light from your flashlight can sometimes make it even worse. That's when I saw a bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, slightly splashed with pee, but I was in such a moronic daze from shock that I groped around for it, thinking, "See, this is it. This will explain why he was back here." It explained it. Once I maneuvered it over and pulled it open, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is, more laser-focused than I have ever been in my life, with one singular goal: get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car, and slammed the pedal to the floor before the door was even all the way closed. I went as far as I could, as fast as I could, until I hit a red signal. Then I pulled off to the side and realized I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm and coherent enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first? The police? Or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have been really more than 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour, and decided, okay, I am in my locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up and she might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl? I thought I remembered delivering to that house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me? Or worse, every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now, so I thought, she called me all out of breath. She wasn't home. The whole thing was off. I can't risk it. I'll start with the cops. I called 911. The operator was very helpful in keeping me calm because I was a complete wreck by this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon, and I kept telling them they had to get there before the girl did. But I was trying to express 3 thoughts at once and really damaging my own credibility. It came out more as, you gotta save this girl because he wasn't after me. I was just delivering a pizza. Unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl. But I talked to one on the phone, so then you should find the girl because they used her to lure me there. Because if she's real, then she doesn't know about the guy who was also real. And there could be more guys if there's actually a girl. And you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might actually be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't actually know. But we'll know which guy is the one I saw because I pissed all over him, you know. I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real but not home. But she might be real, so you really need to find her if she is because the guy was real. Finally, they basically just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line. But that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disrupting my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But then, she sent me this text like, "Hey, I'm here. I don't see you." I told 911 she was there and they said officers were only minutes away. But who knows how long that meant, especially after I'd given such a scattered account of events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt because my rational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put my 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back, heart absolutely pounding out of my chest, compulsively muttering, fuck, 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 the entire way. Then I took 911 off mute and told them that I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars in the street, looking to see if one was mine, and I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced on over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky, and I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was. But I was so scared to be back in the general area and to not know what had just happened or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, "Get in, get in." And she was like, "Get it? Oh, you want me to get the pizza from the back?" I didn't want to make the same mistake with her that I had made with 911, so instead of trying to tell the whole story, I stuck to the bare basic facts. "There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now, please get in the car so we can lock the doors." I was barely able to get even those sentences out, and I was shaking like I'd had 10 cups of black coffee. I held up my phone with 911 on the call screen to verify it for her. I thought that was why she got in the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. "You still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Is anyone else there?" 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them, and we drove, more cautiously this time, to a location 911 instructed us to wait at to speak with the police after they cleared the area. I didn't actually have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after, and the police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I observed, and she went to go speak to more officers in more detail than they needed me for. It turns out, the reason she got right into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind from hearing, "There's a guy in your bushes." She later called us to thank me and insist on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, so the kid who answered didn't know to refuse to accept the money. But the manager already promised the next time we see her, we can load her up with enough one free pie cards to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could possibly know the girl or know the event. But I'm still not the same since, and even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly, this truly shook me to my core. So, man in the bushes, let's not meet.
This happened a few years ago, in my old one-person flat. I had a strange feeling that something wasn't right for a few days. Like, I was sure that the food in the fridge was less than I put back last time. I found pillows from my couch on the floor, stuff like that. I lived alone back then, so there wasn't anyone else with me in my flat, or anyone who had access to it either. Or so I thought. Well, one night I woke up around 1 a.m, sweating. And even though I didn't remember, I was sure I woke from a nightmare. Since I was drenched in sweat, I decided to take a shower, so I put my phone up in the bathroom for music, turned on the water, and enjoyed the shower. A few minutes later, I heard the door move. I never closed it, but it never moves. I took a look at the shower curtain and saw a shadow against it. And a look at my phone confirmed someone was there, since I could clearly see a reflection in my screen that showed someone standing next to the shower curtain. It took me a lot not to scream and to keep from acting like I didn't notice anything, while silently taking the shower head off the holding and turning the water all the way to hot. I'm still kind of impressed at that quick thinking. Our water got really hot when you cranked it all the way up, and a few seconds later, steam was rising, and the water hurt my feet flowing into the drain. I turned around, ripped the shower curtain open, and held the shower head right at the person behind. It was a woman. She screamed in pain. I whacked her in the face with the shower head and jumped out of the shower and ran to the door, taking the key out of the lock and closing it behind me. A little later, she started to bang on the door, but the door didn't give. Thank God for German quality work. I called the cops and went to the kitchen to get my big kitchen knife, just for safety. I felt like my throat was closing up when I saw it missing and realized there's only one place it could possibly be right now. The police came and arrested the woman, who turned out to be the former resident. She had been evicted from the flat for not paying rent. She had made a copy of the key and came into the flat while I was at work sometimes at night. It's possible that the reason I woke up in the first place was down to her, and honestly, I don't even want to think about that. Ever since then, I always insist that the locks are changed when I move into a new place. Edit. Since a lot of people ask, I found the knife later in the bathroom, so she definitely brought it with her. And either the police disarmed her or she dropped it.
I finally decided to post what happened to me 4 years ago. Take note, English is not my first language. At that time, I was 17 years old and I was living for a few years in a small house with my mom after my parents divorced 6 years ago. The house wasn't huge, but we had one floor with our bedrooms and a small garden. We also have a dog who isn't really scary. It's one of those small dogs with a lot of hair. His biggest default is that he barks a lot during the day every time someone is close to the garden. That annoyed me and my neighbors a lot. But it's important to note that my dog never barks at night and always sleeps in my bed with me. Anyway, one time in the middle of the night, I had a dream where I heard constant dog barking. In my dream, I felt like it lasted 1,000 years, but I think it only lasted for a few seconds. When I woke up of that nightmare, I didn't feel the weight of my dog on my feet. I felt like something was wrong, and then realized my dog was actually barking and growling. I didn't understand what was happening. I just looked for my dog and saw him on top of the stairs, and his head was facing towards the front door. The door opening to our garage was actually on the side of the front door. I jumped out of my bed and rushed to the top of the stairs where my dog was. There was a shadow of a man standing just at the bottom of the stairs next to the front door. I wasn't even able to shout. I just took my dog in my arms by reflex and ran towards my mom's room. My mom was just waking up. She takes medication to sleep, so it's very hard to wake her up. Thank God, the door of her bedroom can be unlocked with a key. Even though I was shaking like hell, I locked the door, and my mom understood what was happening when we heard footsteps coming from the stairs. We froze in a corner of her bedroom, and she grabbed her phone to call the police. While we were trying to reach the cops, the guy started shaking the door handle and then punching the door. After a moment, he stopped, and this psycho laughed. He started laughing. That's when my mom and I thought of the idea of shouting, "I call the police! Get out!" After a moment, we heard him going down the stairs, still laughing. We didn't even dare to move until we heard the police officers. When they arrived, no one was there, but in the living room on the table, there was a note where he wrote, "See you soon." They said later that apparently the guy got in and out by my garage door, which had a back door at that time that we always left open. Immediately after that, we went living with my grandparents for a while and moved out in a new house a couple of months later. We never heard of this guy again, but we always check every door to see if it's locked before going to bed, and I have had trouble falling asleep ever since. For almost a year, I wait until it's 4 a.m. to go to sleep just to be sure he didn't find us and try to sneak into our home again.
This happened 24 years ago, in July of 1996. I had finished my term of service for the Army. I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, and decided at midnight I would out-process and travel back to Wisconsin. All day I was so anxious to go that I had trouble sleeping. Finally, at 1:45, I got out of bed and went to sign out with the desk sergeant. Of course, knowing people wanted to sign out at midnight, he decided to do his rounds. You can't leave until you get your final sign-off with the sergeant and turn in your room key, So I waited and waited, and finally, at 2:45, he returned. I turned in my key and got the sign off at around 3:30, and then I was on my way. At first, I was so full of adrenaline that I felt like I could drive for days. Unfortunately, that adrenaline didn't last long, and by the time I was getting through Dallas, I was already nodding off. I decided that just past Denton, I would pull over at the rest stop and take a quick nap until the sun came up. I could barely keep my eyes open when I came up to a stop. I pulled over, got out my car to get some air to throw something away, and to get a look at my surroundings. There were only 3 other cars and 2 semi-trucks there. It was a picnic stop, and not a rest stop, so there were no restrooms. I threw away my trash and glanced at a poster of a few missing persons, but I really didn't pay much attention to it. I went back to my car, which was a basic Geo Metro. No radio, no power windows, no power locks. I cracked the windows, turned on the boombox I had for some tunes, and laid down to get some sleep. I was only asleep for maybe 5 or 10 minutes when I felt my car shake slightly. I cracked an eye open and looked and didn't see anything, so I blew it off and went back to sleep. I then heard what sounded like my door handle being pulled and scratched on the door key. I then sat up, but I didn't see anyone there. I looked at all the windows and didn't see anyone. So again I shrugged it off as me being tired and laid back down, turned up the radio. Being a Texas night in July, it was hot, but I was so tired, I just laid back down. A few more minutes later, I heard the door handle again and the car really shook. I sat up quickly and saw a man standing at the passenger side, looking in. Even though it was hot and humid, he was wearing a red sweatshirt with his hood up. I couldn't see his face. Being young and dumb and just out of the military, I yelled at him, "What the fuck do you want?" He just stared at me, so like an idiot, I got out the car. Mind you, I'm only 5'6", but I was pissed. He just walked off towards the picnic tables like nothing happened. All the while, I'm yelling at him that if he comes back, I'll take him out. I decided I would drive on from there. I got back in and went on my way. Even though I was so upset, only about 10 miles down the road, I was super tired again. Luckily, about another 10 miles down the I-35, there was another picnic stop. Not sure why North Texas doesn't have rest areas, but they don't. So I pulled into the second picnic stop and backed into a spot just in case I needed to leave again quickly. Not sure why, but there was only 1 car there, and no semi-trucks. I again locked the doors, cracked the windows, turned on the boombox, and I fell asleep pretty much straight away. And about 30 minutes later, I heard a loud thud on my driver's side door. I jumped up, looked around, and no one was there. So I got out of the car, which was very stupid. I had my macho military attitude going. No one was around. I assumed it was my nerves from the other stop. I got back into the car, locked the doors again, and closed my eyes. This time I was too amped up to fall asleep, so I just laid there with my eyes closed. I felt that someone was looking at me, and I opened my eyes and saw a guy standing there again with a red sweatshirt, hood up. Couldn't see his eyes, but I could see that he was smiling at me. I popped up quick and tried to quickly open the door and bump him. Being a cheap Geo, since the doors were locked, it didn't open. He walked backwards, still staring at me. By this time, he got about 30 feet away, facing me. It was fairly dark, but as I looked him over, he looked real skinny. But he was about 6'2", maybe 6'3". But I still felt like I could take him on with my military experience. He was wearing the red hooded sweatshirt, blue jeans, and green tennis shoes. For some reason, I thought that the shoes looked odd. I could see something shine every now and then as he stood there staring at me. I believe it was a machete. I quickly reached into my back seat, grabbed my baseball bat, and started yelling at him to come get some. Not sure why I said that. He started walking towards me. I took a few steps towards him, not really thinking, and as I got about 5 feet from my car, he was now 15 feet in front of me. A yellow van pulled up real quick. and parked just off to the side of my car. I finally realized what was happening, and I saw two guys wearing hooded sweatshirts in the van. Before they could get out, I ran back to my car. I had left my keys in the ignition. Since I had backed in, I was able to cut it hard and peeled my car out of there. I was so lucky, being a manual car, that it didn't stall, because the other two guys were out of the van and the first guy was just about at my car. I jumped back onto the interstate, and I didn't stop until I was 20 miles into Oklahoma. I stopped for gas and to use the restroom. In the restroom, I noticed that same flyer that I barely glanced at the first picnic stop. It was basically a flyer with several missing persons on it, and warning people not to stop for long periods of time at the rest areas. It described a possible suspect as being possibly 6 foot tall, wearing blue jeans, green shoes, and a red hooded sweatshirt. I completely went white. Needless to say, since it was daylight, I drove the rest of the way to Wisconsin, wide awake. Not sure why, but I've never reported to the number on the flyer or told anyone about this. But now I live in North Texas, and I pass those two picnic spots every day on my way to work, and I think about it quite often. I wonder if they got anyone else, or if they caught them. I tried looking it up, but I don't find any stories about it on the internet. So, creepy dudes in the sweatshirts in Texas in July, let's not ever meet again.
Hi everybody, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. And if ever you want to send me a story to read, you can send it to my email, which is in the description of the video. If you want to follow me on my social media, links and information about my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages are in the description too. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell. Again, thanks for watching.